Hello everyone, it's Elizabeth here. You can't do many projects to change something without spending a bit of money. And when money is involved, a contract is essential. Generally, you'll come across one of three types of contracts on your projects. Fixed price, cost reimbursable, which you might also come across as cost plus, or time and materials. However, the contract that you sign is for the whole deal. So if it makes sense to have some services from one vendor on a fixed price basis, other services from the same provider on a time and materials basis, your contract can include both those agreements, both those sets of terms. You wouldn't have a different contract for both elements simply because they were delivered on different financial terms. So take that into account when you're looking at your contracts. There may be other reasons to have contracts for different terms, but they're likely to be because the deal was agreed at a different date, or it was a new piece of services or something like that. Right, so let's look at an example of these different types of contract. Let's say you want to buy software consultancy and development services from a vendor. They'll help you spec out the software so it's fit for use by the users, and then they're going to build it for you. So the requirements gathering part of that deal will be on a fixed price basis. Let's just say they know because of past experience it will take them 6 workshops and some prep time to prepare and complete the requirements. So they can cost for that in one hit, and that will be their fixed price. But they don't know how long it's going to take to build the software because you don't know what the requirements are yet. So they have to allow some degree of flexibility there. If it's a lot of work, they want to be compensated obviously for the time they spend, but they don't want to overcharge you if it's not that much work. So they're going to price that based on the effort that it takes to do the work, and that's a time and materials contract. They know, however, to continue our example, there's also a software license that they're going to buy on your behalf, and you plan to pay them for this at the purchase price. So that's cost reimbursable. The one contract between your company and their company is going to cover all of these elements. You choose your contract terms based on the best procurement arrangement for your company and for their company, depending on what you both want to get out of the deal. Ideally, you want to make sure that everybody's interests are covered. So let's look again at those 3 different types of contracts, and I'll go into it in a bit more detail. I'm going to start with fixed price contracts. With a fixed price contract, the buyer, that's you, doesn't take on much of the risk. It's great for the project's risk register, not so great for the project budget. The seller is adopting all of the risk. They normally add a bit to the price to make up for that because they have to allow for risk mitigation activities. So for example, going back to our software consultancy example, they think it's going to take them 6 workshops to define the requirements for your project, because it has done the last 10 times they've done very similar work to this. But it doesn't actually mean it's going to take 6 this time round. They've never worked in your industry before, let's say. So they need to be a little bit aware of having to add a bit in, perhaps, to the fixed price proposal, just to cover them in case they have to do more. What sometimes happens is that vendors want to win your business so much they lower the price, or they price themselves too low. And the problem there is that if something does go wrong, all the risk is on the vendor's side. They don't have enough profit. They haven't asked enough, they haven't costed it properly, they don't have enough profit in the deal to make it worth their while. So they might lose money working on your project, which is not a good place to be, and it puts them in a difficult position. So if this happens to you, you need to watch out, because they may well start to cut requirements or drop quality to try to claw something back, or they may well say that actually you've asked for a change in scope and overcharge you for the changes. There are advantages with fixed price contracts though, and that is that you know as the buyer exactly how much it's going to cost before you begin the work. So for many project teams, that is a huge, huge benefit. Okay, let's look at cost reimbursable contracts. With these contracts, you pay the vendor the actual cost of the work. So it could be materials, it could be equipment, it could be whatever really, and it will normally include the direct costs like salaries, and indirect costs like electricity for running the office. Indirect costs are going to be a percentage amount. I mean, they're not going to send you their electricity bill and ask you to pay a portion for the months that they worked on your project. So they will just have a day rate or something to do that. So with this type of contract, how does the vendor make any money? Obviously, they're not going to do it for nothing, and so you're covering all of their expenses. They need there to be some kind of financial return. Otherwise, what's the point? They won't be in business for very long. The contract's therefore going to include a clause that allows them to claim some profit over the cost price. So that's either a fixed fee or some kind of incentive payment. It's quite common if your vendor proposes this, so if you make sure you fully understand what you are signing up to. Finally, we have time and materials contracts. These are the ones I use the most. I think they are very common. And they see the vendor being reimbursed for the materials that you purchase, plus a per day rate or per hour rate for the time that they spend. So let's go back to our software example. The developers who are building the software in this example, they're going to charge you on a time and materials basis. So there probably won't be very many materials that they need, but they're going to charge you their daily rate for the time spent writing the software, testing the software, coming to meetings, all that kind of stuff. So they're going to pretty much act like they're a salaried member of your team, and you'll have a fair amount of control over what they do because you're paying for their hours. So if you want them to come to an extra meeting, you just invite them, you know you're going to pay it. You might find that they're asking you to sign timesheets at least perhaps once a month, once a week, or they might be submitting timesheets for you to approve on an electronic system, and that goes with the invoice. So they may well send you the invoice with the timesheets as evidence that they have actually done the work that they've billed for. I think this kind of contract is great for projects where you don't know exactly what you want, but you do know you need specialist help when you're not 100% sure when you start out. But you have to keep a close eye on costs and the budget to make sure that you're not overspending or committing to more hours than you can really afford. It can be a really cost-effective way to add skills to the team. So those are the 3 different types of contract that I think you will find most commonly on your projects. I'm really interested to hear what sort of contracts you use most regularly. So why not leave us a comment on this video, and I look forward to reading those. I hope you found that useful, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.